Okay, so this video is about some thoughts on medical research and some of my thoughts about a common statement made about AI that I feel maybe this ties in. This is not a super exciting thing, nothing amazing ideas here, but we'll have a look. Hopefully I get this window usage thing right. Anyway, so medical research sucks, and what I really mean by this is the framework in which we do medical research, and I particularly dislike medical patents. So I think they're kind of a terrible idea. And one of the main reasons, of course, is that when you have patents, it focuses research in things that are patentable, right? Or things that you can modify slightly in order to get a new patent to continue using that thing when patents run out. It has a sort of effect on research where it's not perhaps focused in the best way. And of course, people will obviously complain that there's a profit incentive not to cure something but to treat things. Or not to prevent as well. So the idea, there's this sort of mismatch in goals for different parties here. And ultimately, what you want to do is you want medical research to be as effective as possible, I guess open as possible, and not to go down branches of treatment that are more for profitability or commercial reasons than anything else. But of course, you may say, well, patents are very important because they encourage businesses to invest, right? It costs billions, millions, and billions of dollars to do medical research. It's naive, you may say, to think that if you didn't have that, you could just remove patents and that you would expect big pharma companies to continue doing the research when another company will just come and take what they've done and sell it at a cheaper price or whatever. It's not going to be economically viable. I'm going to argue that there is an alternative, but it's not what people will like. So the better way, no patents, right? So throw them out the window. So instead, what you have is you have a global fund. So it's real simple. And so countries pay into this fund according to how wealthy they are. Because I'm an egalitarian and I want sort of fairness in the world. And I think every person deserves the equal respect, and they deserve to be treated with the same respect that they sure will be treated as. We're equally valuable, or that our lives should not be. We won't go into equality yet, but I'm saying equal respect. And if we live in a world where some people have much more money than others, it's okay if they're contributing a bit more so that things even out a bit. Especially when it comes to healthcare. I'm very big on the idea that healthcare is just something that people should have access to, regardless of whether they made poor life decisions or they are rich or poor or whatever, or made brilliant life decisions somehow. Or are they just like an amazing people? Everyone should have access to good healthcare. And so how this works is that there's a global fund. All countries pay into this, but of course it's relative to your GDP. And this is the fund that pays for the research groups. So these can be private ones, public ones, just like any sort of normal applying for grants process. But this is like a massive fund specifically for medical research. And so the funding is decided by a board of elected or nominated people. So people who know what they're talking about, not just general everyday. You have to, of course you want this to be as democratic as possible, but I don't want to have a world where we nominate RFK Jr., for example, to do anything to do with healthcare. Sorry for people who support him. But the members are proportional from countries all over the world based on the population. So this would have a situation where the board is more stacked with members from African countries or from India and China than they would be from the West, which some people might be annoyed because it might well be that the West is the one putting in most of the money at the moment. I'm sure that will change in the future. But again, this is my thing and my personal ideals. So, I mean, the thing is, you get people from Africa are still going to fund cancer research. They're still going to fund the things that matter, but they might just, fund particular types of malaria research as well, which seems a little bit fairer, and other kind of things that might affect different parts of the planet differently. And so all the research is patent free. So what then happens is the research is published, it's made available, but private industry still plays a role, and that role is to produce drugs just like generic drugs are produced today. And of course, I don't know if I go into this, but there would be a regulation around this. You couldn't just produce a drug and say that it is this drug. You'd need to have that checked out. So there would have to be, private industry would have to fund people coming in and confirming what they're making is what they say they are making, those kind of things. But I have no problem with private industry producing these drugs. It's the patents that I don't like. So what are the advantages? Excuse me. So the research is directed specifically by need, not by profit incentives. So you don't have this case where you're slightly adjusting drugs to get a new patent. That's just not a thing anymore. And the research applies to novel uses of current drugs as well as new drugs. So you have an incentive. So at the moment, there might not be so much research into using a drug that is a generic drug that's been used for something else for a long time, but just happens to have a use for something new. So I mean that research does happen, but this is like, it's more likely to happen if that's a thing that needs to happen. If it's not a thing that needs to happen, well, it's not going to. Research is going to be focused just as much on prevention and cure as well as much as treatment, right? So since there's no longer an incentive, profit incentive in the future for these things, then focusing on a cure might be, all that matters is how much money you're getting for your grant. So once you've got your grant, you're not making any money. After that, you're just getting money to do the research. And people are obviously going to want to give money to the research groups that are looking and have the most promising methods for finding cures, not for finding treatments. But of course, treatments are going to happen as well because you can't cure everything, unfortunately. So next advantages. So the discoveries are guided by need. And this is because the board is weighted by different population groups. So as I said, some diseases might not get as much attention because of, say, a bias towards wealthier countries doing most of the research and making products for wealthier countries at the moment. So you might get a nice sort of situation where you're focusing on diseases that people in the West, for example, haven't even heard of. Or just health problems that are concerning people all over the world. They can be different, and there's still the market of ideas. You're not sitting there. It's not like, oh wow, we're the government's going to decide everything. That yes, there is a central board that are doing these things, but hopefully the research board is open and clear and transparent in all this, so everybody knows what's happening and that they can get there in a way that's transparent, and that if they're no longer doing a very good job, they can be removed. So you have all these research groups that are competing with ideas, so they have to justify it. So it's just like getting a research grant. I'm just saying there's a lot more money in this because I'm envisioning that there should be lots of money. Right, disadvantages. So people might say, well, it's woke socialism or something like that. I don't know. People say things and then they're like, it's a bad thing for some reason. Then they'll say it's woke globalism. How dare, and I'm going to say that, I've written it down, but how dare we all work together for the benefit of humanity? It's like, well, you might think that we shouldn't be doing everything together, but personally, I think we should be, and I think we should be working for everybody. And of course, this is going to hurt the share prices of pharmaceuticals because they'll just become generic producers. And of course, they will still do research. I mean, those labs are going to be part of the people applying for grants, but they're going to make, they're going to still function as a functioning business. But if there's any sort of case of them making more profits than maybe they should be, then that will not happen anymore, because all they're doing is selling generics, and you've got a free and open market for that. So their prices, they're not making huge profits on the selling of generics, and they're not making any profits on doing the actual research. They're just getting the money to do the research. And of course, some people might say, how dare poor people use my money to not get sick? And it's like, well, you might think of that, but like, I don't have any argument for you, because we obviously think and value things very differently. People, even if they make terrible life decisions or they've done bad things, still, in my opinion, deserve healthcare. And it's like vastly in the minority that someone you might come up and say, well, they didn't really deserve any of this. Who actually are that, I'm not even going to bother. I'm not going to bother with that argument, so we'll move on to the next thing in this very quick talk is about AI. So the thing that, one of these things I think with AI is you hear people, they're all like believing that AI is going to have all this massive like effect on our science, and it's just going to create all this new medical research, medical technology, and we'll live forever, and all of these kind of things. And in my previous AI video, I talked about how I think a moral AI might in fact conclude that we don't deserve any of this advanced medical research, and might in fact choose to exterminate many of us. So I'm not entirely sure that I personally would not bank on AI doing all of these things. But my point here is, with this system here, we could, like, the problem at the moment is not that we are too stupid to do the medical research, but we don't have the system set up to be the most optimal way to do the most useful medical research. This is my opinion that I'm stating here. And if we used all of the money that we have been chucking into data centers and all the stuff for AI, just think of how much good medical science could have been done with that money if we had the right system set up. And so it just feels to me that, yes, it might be slightly slower than, Singularity, super fast AI, but we could live in a world with vast medical advances if we were funding this properly and using, and instead of spending all the money on AI to do it, we could have spent all the money on people to do it. And then we wouldn't have the problems of AI deciding that we should all just die or whatever. Right? So that's just my thought about this. There's lots of things to think about that. But of course, this kind of system might actually be needed even if you had AI. Because even if AI becomes really good at medical research, we can't really justify patenting and its ideas. I don't think the public will accept that. So the main cost just shifts towards efficacy and safety studies, which will be these long drawn-out studies where you have to go and do your phase 1, phase 2, clinical trials, phase 3, get people, do them, put them into trials, and all this kind of stuff here. And so you can still have the system there because someone's going to have to pay for that, right? So this is just a simplified version where you're still playing by GDP. There's still a board, but the board is deciding on the which areas of AI research should be put forward to clinical trials, and then funding those clinical trials or funding the real world work that you still have to do outside of a machine. So anyway, thanks for watching that. Next video is going to be a positive one about how we might create an economic system with a super intelligent AI that has taken away our need to do labor, basically. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. So bye.